Our first speaker this morning is Professor John Pollaers, who is the chair of the Australian Industry and Skills Committee. He's led major Australian and international companies, including Pacific Brands and Foster's Group. In his current roles, he's working across government to bring about major reforms to vocational education and training and aged care. John is also chair of the Australian Advanced Manufacturing Council, a member of the Prime Minister's Industry 4.0 Task Force, and an advisory board member at Melbourne University's Centre for Workplace Leadership. Professor Pollaers will share his thoughts on how effective industry engagement is shaping vet qualifications to meet changing skills needs. He'll also speak about the role of the Australian Industry and Skills Committee in bringing about a more flexible and responsive national training system. Please make him welcome.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today, and welcome to the very many visitors from overseas. I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, to their elders past and present. But I'd also like to take a moment to reflect upon the very many elderly Australians and elderly around the world who are sitting at home alone, who are unwell, and who today may be facing up to an aged care system, not even realising that as late as last night. Now, why do I open with that? I open with it because I'm going to share a story with you of the aged care industry in Australia and where you see the results of a failure of industry and the community working together to address future skills. Now, the Industry and Skills Committee that I chair is responsible for vocational training packages across the 66 industries in the country. The focus is, and has been, on building a system where industry stands in the centre of the system and takes responsibility, if you like, for the engagement that's necessary, the identification of current and future skills needs, and the execution of those in the form of training products that then enter the national training system. And by and large, that system has been recognised around the world as being one of the leading examples of industry working to lead on issues of skills. But we often take it for granted. And having just finished chairing the Aged Care Workforce Strategy Task Force, what became very clear is that industry need to lift their ownership of the training system another level. And increasingly, they need to engage the community in the recognition of those skills and ultimately the government in support for the delivery of those skills. So what did we face up to in the Aged Care Workforce Strategy Review? Well, a number of things. Firstly, we identified that the needs of the consumer and of the market around aged care have moved on much faster than the industry's been able to adapt. So if you've got an industry that's been trying to catch up with a clinical-based care system, what we've actually seen is the community wants holistic care. They want not just clinical care, they want functional care, they want cognitive care, they want living well aspirations and cultural needs to be met in a system that's not meeting it. So we decided to have a detailed look at the workforce structure and the workforce planning. And what we uncovered was this industry and many industries are not doing the kind of workforce planning that they need to ensure training products map to current job roles and career paths within industries. So we've in fact been actively developing and improving educational products from a base, but that base may no longer reflect the true nature of work and career pathing and the needs of industry. So let me take you into a little bit more depth, and if you do want to read that report, there were 10 recommendations for industry that would go directly to improvement of leadership skills and outcomes, and 4 that would go directly to government, that they have conveniently sidestepped by announcing a Royal Commission that won't report back until 2020. More on that. When it comes to what the industry can do for itself, this was a case where the aged care industry as an emerging industry was not represented in the system. Myriad reviews have been held that have dealt with workforce practices and skills, but nobody thought to take it over to the Department of Education and follow through. So there was no representation within the aged care sector in the skills system. The consequence, we went and had a look at the very many consumer complaints that have come through over time through various reports, and what we uncovered were fundamental competency gaps around dementia management, medical dispensing of medical support, around diversional therapy, around palliative care, a number of critical areas. We went back and looked at the skills system, and what we found was that many of those areas do exist, but they exist as electives. And why do they exist as electives? Because at some stage we decided that we wanted to create training product that could enable people to move between industries, and in this particular area it resulted in a dumbing down of the qualification, because in many instances electives are not delivered by training organisations, and many states don't fund all of those electives to be delivered. So we do have students being prepared for industry work without the necessary skills. But then we went further. We looked at the jobs they were doing, and we found that they're actually 70% of the workforce is graded a job hay rating, and these are our personal care workers, at about a 7 to 8. A first year receptionist comes in at a 10, and a telephone call operator at a 10. So you've got 50 to 70% of the workforce undervalued, underrated, underskilled, and I won't go into too much more depth on it, but under-rewarded as a consequence. So what needs to be done about it? Well, firstly, it highlighted that many industries do need to go back and have a look at their workforce planning capabilities to now really properly review the work and the support, the skills that support the preparation into the workplace. We also uncovered, though, the emphasis on qualifications is leading to, in some ways, some areas of overqualifications and others of under, but it's one size fits all. Cert 3 does the job for everybody. And what we've identified is a need for micro-credentialing, an ability to introduce accreditation at certain levels, a different approach to the recognition of prior learning so we can bring carers into the system. But fundamentally, we've also recognised a failure in understanding career pathing to create future work within those industries, and the skills support for lifelong learning that would be required. And skill sets are also not funded within the current system, but that is the greatest need when you're talking about people in their late 40s and 50s who still need to be prepared for the changing nature of work. So it's a very interesting piece of work. I would encourage you all to read it, but it very much points to the future of work is here and it's present today. Many industries need changes in fundamental skill sets to deliver the next 1 to 3 and set up for the 5 to 7. And we've got to stop having these conversations about the next 15 to 30 when there are many, many areas of current need today. So thank you.